All right, so I'm just going to break it down by the regions. I'm going to go region by region. I'm going to start in the South. Michigan, Auburn. Seen really good over money. We opened 151 and a half. We're now 154. Open Auburn 8. And we actually moved up to 9 there. So we've seen money on Auburn. I think eventually there will be some buy on Michigan because the number's pretty high, but we haven't seen that Michigan money yet. The other game in the South, Ole Miss, Michigan State. Very interesting because Ole Miss obviously, battle tested with a really good, obviously in the SEC, and a really good tournament coach in Chris Beard. This is the lowest spread on the board. We opened Michigan State 4, saw some Ole Miss money come in at 4. We are 3.5. Really no move on the total as of yet. In the East, Arizona and Duke. The number is 9.5. I expect it to go up. Just like the Baylor game, when we opened 12, closed 13.5. I expect this Duke number to probably get to 10, 10.5, maybe even 11. Over money has also come in on an opener of 152. We're now 154. BYU and Alabama, two just offensive juggernauts. We know the total is going to be high. The total is extremely high. We opened 172.5. We're now 176. Little bit of money on Bama at 4.5 moved us to 5, but really nothing crazy. We just kind of moved with the market on that one. In the West, Maryland and Florida, we opened this one 5. We're now 6.5. I expect this to even go up further, maybe 7, 7.5. I think Maryland's very overmatched in this game. Florida might have gotten their clunker out of the way in that tough game against UConn that they probably should have lost, but Clayton went crazy in the game. Total went up on this one as well, 155 to 158. This, to me, is the most interesting game. Arkansas and Texas Tech opened 5.5. We haven't budged off it. And we've seen good two-way money. We've seen Arkansas get a little bit of money and we've seen Texas Tech get a little bit of money. I'm shocked by that. I thought the people would come in and bet Texas Tech and figure the ride was over for Arkansas. That has been the opposite. They have wanted to take a little bit of Arkansas and take a little bit of Arkansas on the money line as well. You'll see a lot of that this week with underdogs. Money line sprinkles are all over the board. And then the last region in the Midwest, Purdue and Houston. We opened 7.5. We're now 8.5. So, no surprise that the Houston money's come in. Now, Purdue is playing close to home in Indianapolis. Total's really been bet down. 133.5, now 131. Obviously, Houston plays a grind-out style game. They want to play under. Purdue wants to shoot threes and maybe get the game over. So, the initial money, sharp, by the way, is under. And Kentucky, Tennessee's seen really good two-way action. We opened Tennessee 5. We've seen money on Kentucky at 5. We've seen money on Tennessee at 4.5. So that's been really good two-way action. Obviously it's an SEC battle. This is the third time they're playing. Kentucky has beat them twice. So that's a game that's going to be heavily bet. And Kentucky's always a big name, so they always receive public money as well.
And so far tonight, the only move that we didn't bet, but a group that I do share stuff with, they send me theirs, I send them ours. They bet the over in Kent, Loyola, Chicago. They bet over 140.5 all the way up to 142. It's the same guys that came in and bet Cleveland State last night and drove that line up, even hit it second time, third time. Now they're just coming in on that. As far as the Sweet 16, I'm seeing the exact same thing that I think Art's seeing. And they're betting every game over, every single game over, Andrew. I don't see and it's not the betting syndicates. The betting syndicates are getting out ahead on some of these overs. And I always tell on last call, and I always say it on WagerTalk Today, if you're following steam, if you're trying to get on the sharp side, be careful with these totals, especially early on, and especially in public games, because a lot of times, if their intention is to go under, they know they could get out ahead of the market. Like if they bet the over, you put it through a labeled account that's sharp, you bet the over a little bit. And the book knows, oh my God, we're going to get 80% of the money from the public on over in Duke, Arizona. We're going to get 70+% on over Maryland and Florida. We're going to get over in Purdue and Houston. I could just make a couple limit bets for nickels on the over early in the week. The book's now terrified because it's not just the sharps on it. The public's going to be on it. We're going to have so much risk on these games. So they bump up the total even higher than they otherwise would, because it's that time of the year where there's just more public money than sharp money. and it starts to outweigh it. So they'll bump it up and hope to get some resistance back the other way. And they end up getting it from the very group that actually wanted the under, not the over, later in the week, more or less an hour, 2 hours before game time. Because now instead of having to go under 154, they get to go under 156. A much better number than they would have either. And, I get it's a zero-sum game. So if other groups see that, oh, wait, this line's too high, we're going to get the under as well. It doesn't matter because there's so much public money outweighing short money, especially when you get down to the 316, Elite Eight, Final Four, National Championship. They're isolated games. It's almost comparable to a Super Bowl, just not the amount of volume. But you're going to get people that are just betting that particular game, and the bias is going to be to the favorites and over. So I'm seeing nothing but over money on all of these college basketball games in the Sweet 16. The heaviest overs, like I said, is BYU, Alabama, Duke, Arizona, and Florida, Maryland. Those three, they're betting it over like they're expecting 200 points. They're already parlaying stuff from early in the week. Like they'll bet an NBA. I see it in the back end all the time. They'll take an NBA team that's minus 900 money line and they'll parlay it with their Sweet 16 pick just to have a little extra on that bet. And so I'm already seeing like this is what they like. And what I'm seeing is they like Duke. They're already parlaying it with Duke. They're already parlaying it with Florida. And they're already parlaying it with Houston. Duke, Florida, Houston will be the biggest exposure for the sports books come Sweet 16. Like if one of those teams go down on the money line, it's going to be a great day for the sports books. If one or two of them don't cover the spread ATS, even if they win on the money line, it's going to be a great day for the sports books. But if all three of those teams cover the spread, it's not going to be a good day. You're going to see a lot of 3, 4, 5 team parlays click for the public. So that's pretty much what's going on in college basketball as we approach Sweet 16 tomorrow night.
Donnie, I do got to bring up a betting tip for tonight. Looking at this Celtics Suns game, it looks like Tatum's going to be out, doubtful with the sprained ankle. The Celtics are 5-1 this season, and they're averaging 117 points per game. Suns have won 4 straight over Eastern Conference teams like Milwaukee, Cleveland, Chicago, Toronto. They're averaging 121 points. Kevin Durant's going ballistic. Total for the game is only 220. That seems low. The Celtics team total is 112.5. Suns team total is 107.5. I kind of like the overs in that game. Also, a player prop in that one, Ryan Dunn, over 1.5 made threes. He's in the starting lineup now. Minutes are way up. Shot attempts are way up. He's up to 26 minutes per game and 6 3-point shots per game. Not shooting a great percentage, but he's gone over in 6 straight games with this big workload. So keep your eye on those plays for the Celtics and the Suns game.
I did a little research and I found out that Carlos Rodon has really good numbers against the Brewers in his career. And he's been around for a long time, and maybe his best days are behind him. But he's held the Brewers to a 222 average against and a 680 OPS. That's nothing to sneeze at. But what I really like is his career K per 9 against this team is 939, which is outrageously good. And when I run my database, I have a database that I use since I was a major league scout. And when I run it through, I project him with 6.7 strikeouts here. His over-under is 5.5. So I like Carlos Rodon to go over 5.5 strikeouts in this game. Now, I know opening day is a little bit of a risk because pitchers might get taken out a little bit early. But Rodon, he hits the ground running in his career opening. Well, he's usually not the opening day starter, but in his first start, he generally does go quite long. So I'm pretty confident he'll stay in for 5 innings. And if he's in for 5 innings, I certainly think he'll get 6 strikeouts in this one. The Dodgers do have a power lineup, probably the best lineup in the history of MLB, if not at least since 1928. So I think with 2 great starting pitchers, though, we've got Blake Snell and we've got Tarik Skubal. And I did a little research. You want to know how the Dodgers have fared against Tarik Skubal in his short career? He's held them under 200 in the batting average for all the individuals on the Dodgers, combined with a 570 OPS. So I've said this on shows before, but I consider 700 OPS to be kind of the Mendoza line, and then from there over under. So he's definitely under the Mendoza line as far as OPS is concerned against the Dodgers' lifetime. Blake Snell, on the other hand, well, I shouldn't say on the other hand, Blake Snell also has held the Tigers in his in his long career, but short, brief appearances against the Tigers, he's got a 172 average against and a 639 OPS. So I like the under 3.5 in the first 5 innings in this game, despite the power that the Dodgers have. Skubal is just another animal. Skubal and Skeens are just other level kind of stuff. So I think under 3.5 in the first 5 is the way to go in this one.
You find yourself playing a lot more first 5 as opposed to full games over the last couple seasons?
I have not actually, but this is a tip I'm going to get to later in the segment. But on opening day, I think unders are the way to go, at least first 5, because we don't really know what to expect from bullpens, but they are all rested. But no, I generally don't go first 5s, but we've got 2 great pitchers here. So I think first 5 is the way to go.
So I really like the way that Sahith is playing. He's really hitting his irons well. He's playing a lot better than his stats are kind of giving out. He's never really been a good Florida swing player, which is odd considering his residence is in Jupiter. But he just never really plays well there. And we kind of saw that at the Players. We saw it at Bay Hill. He had a decent finish with the tie 36 at Copperhead last week, but just bled strokes on his approach game. And now we're going to get a course that, if you look at the scorecard, it's a par 70, almost reaching out to 7,500 yards. If you put that into perspective, Torrey Pines South is 7,800, par 72. So very similar on the scorecard, yet they're going to play drastically different. Yes, it's going to play a little bit longer in the rain, but if you look at the buckets of, what a lot of these tour pros hit into these greens on this course, it's a lot of between 100 yards and 150 yards. So drastically different than the long irons that we saw last week. And Sahith is really good with his wedges that we've seen kind of more on the desert swings at TPC Scottsdale and whatnot. But if you put a wedge in his hand, he doesn't necessarily need to bomb it off the tee. He is playing a lot better than his stats are showing. And then you go at Ben Griffin, and I think his stats are a little bit skewed because of his 2 pretty good finishes in the Mexico Open and at the PGA National with 2 top, tied for 4th finishes. But if you look at what he did the last 2 weeks, he missed the cut and he just bled strokes off the tee, couldn't putt, couldn't get up and down. Yeah, we're definitely going to need to lean on, getting up and down. These are at Memorial in Houston. It's definitely tough to get up and down. Scrambling is big, and I just don't like the way that he's playing as opposed to how Sahith is playing. So I like Sahith Theegala minus 110 full tournament matchup. Yeah, we kind of got a little bit last week with Joe Highsmith, but we're going to go back to the well. He kind of flared one off the tee on 18, had a terrible lie, couldn't get up and down, just missed the top 20 with the T22, but he's hitting the ball really well. And if you look at what he's doing across the board, he's gaining strokes on the field off the tee and approach around the green, putting. And he just, like I said, he's playing well, and it's a very top heavy field. Like you mentioned, we've got Rory, we've got Scotty, and then I think that the next betting odds is JJ Spawn, who, if he doesn't do what he did at TPC Sawgrass, he's 100 to 1. So it's a very top heavy field. I feel like top 20 is definitely a viable option for somebody that's playing really good golf. And like you said, I'm getting plus 210 on. He just needs to literally get in the top 20. I don't need him to win the tournament. I don't need him to beat Scotty. He doesn't need to be a world beater, but top 20 plus 210. That's kind of where I'm cutting my teeth this week. Back in Taylor Moore at 55 to 1. Copperhead just was not the course for him. He hits the ball long, hits the ball high. He doesn't shape the ball very well. And with those tall trees lining the fairway, it was never going to play into his favor. Now, again, we're getting back to a course where he can kind of play more target golf. He doesn't need to bomb it off the tee. He needs to land it in specific spots. And then, like I said, he's one of the better players with a wedge in his hand, and he's going to have wedges in his hand the entire tournament. So again, like I said, betting Scotty at 3.5 to 1, I'm not doing that. We're going to look for a little bit of a reach, if you will. And I do really like the way that Taylor's playing. I will absolutely throw out last week that was never going to be his course. I like the way he played at the Players. He played well at the PGA National. Yeah, give me 55 to 1. I'm not taking 3.5 on Scotty.